Welcome and thank you for joining us on this special program where we examine the work and highlights of the government's first 100 days in office. We're more than 40 days in. Marana Isaacs will tell us what the major accomplishments of the government during that period are.
As the new administration approached 60 days in office, it presented its $330 billion emergency budget to the National Assembly. Not only was it the fastest budget ever prepared in the country, it was heavily people-centered and results-oriented. It marked the first budget in 20 months. The package, labeled an emergency budget, ensured all Guyanese were afforded a good education, decent work, be able to start their own businesses, raise and provide for a family, own their own homes, live in a safe and secure environment, and retire with dignity. Minister of Works, Bishop Wan Edghill, who presented the budget, said estimates and expenditure for 2020 took into consideration the COVID-19 pandemic and the need to reopen the country's economy. There were also measures to benefit households and small businesses. 4,000 sugar workers lost their livelihood when the last administration closed sugar estates across the country. No alternative means of employment were offered to the laid-off workers, many of whom were the sole breadwinners for their families. As a result, one of the key promises of the PPPC government was the reopening of the sugar estates and the rehiring of fired workers. As the budget was presented, it was clear that the government intended to fulfill its promises to the people.
Our government will make Guy super profitable again. PPPC will raise the livelihood of sugar workers. Only recently we have injected $600 million to pay wages and salary for sugar workers. Budget 2020, we have an allocation of $3 billion for recapitalization of and an additional $2 billion as required.
The fulfillment of the PPPC government's promise and the reinvestment in the sugar industry did not go unnoticed by the Guyanese people. It was a clear demonstration that the administration was serious about its business and delivering to the people.
I feel proud about that. The reason for I come from the sugar estate and I vex bad Wales estate close. I'm from there.
That would be amazing because we need the investment because this estate here could do better.
How I feel, I say it to you, thrilled, overwhelmed, excited on that announcement of $5 billion. While that will have to be divided among many areas and people, the most important thing for me is that we are heard.
As Guyana transitions to an oil and gas producing nation, the government understood that heavy emphasis needed to be placed on safety and security to ensure investments and encourage investors, even while ensuring that citizens can feel safe in their own homes. To this end, $38.9 billion was allocated to enhance the security sector. Approximately $1 billion will go towards the upgrade and repair of police stations and divisional headquarters. Another $428.1 million has been set aside for the procurement of 50 vehicles to increase patrolling activities across the country. $200 million will be spent at the Lusignan prison, which was recently damaged by a fire, and another $2 billion for construction, rehabilitation, and upgrade to prison facilities.
Training and retraining and exchanges with regional and other police forces will be undertaken. And by regional, I mean at the CARICOM level and even by extension further on. We intend to procure more equipment for the Guyana Fire Service. There have been difficulties seen as a result, perhaps, of the lack of proper training, engagement, and assertiveness, which result in perhaps complete loss of buildings, particularly the issue on the Sheriff Street recently. And we, in relation to new fire stations being set up at Lethem and other places, we are examining the issue of putting in a system of volunteer firemen.
In its 2020 elections manifesto, the government committed to making 50,000 house lots available during its term in office. The administration has wasted no time in commencing work in this area. In the emergency budget presented, the government allocated $3 billion for land preparation and the construction of access roads in 22 areas.
To enable every Guyanese family a proper home in a safe, secure, and proper neighborhood, not as squatters or as tenants, but as responsible and proud owners, with titles that banks and other lending institutions will regard as good security.
As part of its commitment to building stronger communities, increasing recreational spaces, and empowering youths across the country, $25 million has been set aside by the government for a youth advisory council. Additionally, multi-purpose complexes in Regions 2, 6 and 10 will be built, and over 30 community grounds are being upgraded across the country to encourage recreational and extracurricular activities.
$2.7 billion has been allocated for culture, youth and sports, for which $805.3 million is for sports.
The PPPC government has long recognized that Guyana's First Peoples deserve to be included in the country's development, and tangible efforts must be made to ensure they are included in every sector. In this regard, the emergency budget was designed to make the lives of Hinterland residents easier, while empowering them to take advantage of educational and other opportunities. To fund economic projects in Amerindian villages and to restart the Community Support Officers Program, $800 million was allocated for the Amerindian Development Fund ADF, with $300 million of that provision to purchase tractors and accessories to encourage agricultural economic activity within Amerindian communities. The government will also recommence support for women in entrepreneurial initiatives such as sewing in an attempt to increase their self-sufficiency and bolster their economic independence. And to support effective governance, an initial $10 million has been set aside for the design of a new head office for the National Tushaus Council. The Information and Communications Technology ICT Hubs program will also be reintroduced to 26 Amerindian communities. To support this rollout, the government will be providing 25,000 household solar photovoltaic units. Reducing inequalities and bridging the hinterland and coastland are key elements in the overall development of Amerindian communities and the country. To achieve this, over $800 million is being spent on the Hinterland Roads program, which will address construction and rehabilitation of roads across regions 1, 7, 8, 9, and 10. To complement these works, VAT on travel to the hinterland has been removed. Education is the backbone of a nation's development, and as such, it calls for investments and incentives that can ensure every child is reached and engaged. Under the former administration, private healthcare and private education were both subjected to corporate tax. Taking into consideration the financial burdens placed on parents and citizens seeking these services, the government removed the impositions on private healthcare and education. It was one of the budget measures that was most welcomed by the population.
We were told of the 58 private schools, according to the then Minister of Finance, only 4 paid their taxes. We're certainly one of those 4, so if in fact that's the case, it gives us a level playing field.
It means that schools can be able to acquire or purchase, for example, in a science laboratory, more chemicals, instruments, apparatus needed for the SBA component. Also, parents would have more money in their pocket.
As the world continues to grapple with the COVID-19 pandemic, schools have been forced to come up with alternative means of educating the nation's children. The Ministry of Education has been leading the way and has rolled out its mass online training program for teachers across the nation. More than 1,000 teachers have successfully registered and commenced training. In line with its commitment to ensure equal learning opportunities for hinterland and coastal communities, the Ministry of Education has also reached out to educators in hinterland and riverine communities through adaptive means. Still focused on ensuring that the capacity of every citizen is enhanced through education, 4,000 free online courses became available to citizens. The Ministry of Education had announced the provision of free access to certified online courses following a partnership with the Commonwealth of Learning, COL. Courses are being offered by Ivy League universities and other reputable institutions in the arts, business, computer science, health and engineering on the online platform Coursera. Upon completion, all students will be presented with a certificate which is recognized by the Private Sector Commission of Guyana for employment purposes. The initiative is aimed at providing online learning to equip persons with the necessary skills for the job market and creating a stage for higher performance in an evolving technological world. Conscious that the pandemic will be around for the foreseeable future, the Minister of Education has allocated funds as well for schools to be equipped and upgraded to ensure safe reopening for face-to-face interaction post-COVID-19. Schools are being equipped with adequate hand-washing sinks, ventilation, space based on registered students and teachers, among other amenities. In the meantime, as schools remain closed to in-person learning, the ministry resumed e-learning on Monday, September 14th, 2020. With a budget of $300 million for a multifaceted approach, the Guyana Learning Channel will be upgraded to serve the needs of students, while educational content has been streamed online, played on the radio, and worksheets have been printed and sent to every region for students. Hinterland students who may not have access to internet or television connectivity have been prioritized for print package distributions. Minister of Education Priya Manikchand said, every effort should be made to distribute print material, workbooks, worksheets, textbooks to the hinterland, then on the coastland. At the time the government assumed office in August 2020, there were over 1,000 COVID-19 tests that were awaiting results. The PPPC government began spearheading increased testing across the country as the situation had become untenable and interventions were needed. 500 samples were shipped to the Trinidad and Tobago-based Caribbean Public Health Agency CARPHA for processing as the government explored other measures that could be put in place. Within 60 days of taking office, COVID-19 testing at the National Public Health Reference Laboratory were being completed within 45 minutes, a drastic reduction from the previous 8 to 9 hour-long process. Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony said more samples were being processed in a shorter time since the government started using a $7.2 million automated extractor donated by the People's Republic of China.
The Chinese government has donated an automated extractor. With that piece of equipment, we have started using it, and I can tell you that we are now able to extract 96 samples within 45 minutes.
Another automated extractor purchased by the ministry is en route to Guyana. As the government upped its response to the pandemic, it was able to broker an arrangement which would give Guyana access to COVID-19 vaccines through COVAX. Guyana is among the 92 countries eligible for coverage under COVAX, a body of organizations including the World Health Organization, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. Gavi's mission is to ensure equal access to vaccines. The cost of the vaccines through COVAX will be covered by Gavi. Through the efforts of President Irfan Ali and his team, Guyana was also able to benefit from more than $122 million in medical equipment from the Pan American Health Organization, World Health Organization, PAHO WHO, and the High Commission of India to aid Guyana's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. When the government assumed office in August, there were 3 functional ventilators at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation. 60 days later, under the PPPC government, 21 ventilators and 315 boxes of examination gloves were received from the Government of India as part of the US $1 million allocated to Guyana from the Quick Impact Development Project. Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony said these supplies would be used to support and strengthen health services, particularly in the intensive care unit, ICU, and the wider healthcare system. The health minister also expressed his gratitude for the donation of the oxygen concentrators. He explained that they will be very helpful in providing air for patients as the machine takes ordinary air and concentrates or converts it to oxygen.
Places like in Region 1, Region 7, Region 8, and Region 9, where it is challenging for us to take oxygen into those communities. So by having these oxygen concentrators, it would help us greatly.
As the government ramped up its COVID-19 response, the Hinterland was not left out. Rapid antigen tests were ordered for selective hinterland regions to increase the testing capacity in those areas.
So this is not the RT-PCR test that we take samples and bring them to the lab. This antigen test is one where right at the site where you're seeing the patient, if you suspect them to have COVID, you can run the test there, and within 45 minutes you'll get back the results. So we have placed an order for 20,000 such tests.
The pandemic has had the most devastating effects on frontline healthcare workers. Cognizant of this, they were being trained in mental health awareness, monitoring and detection. The 4-week virtual mental health course was expected to assist healthcare workers and patients in coping during the COVID-19 pandemic. At the opening of the program, Minister Anthony said the importance of mental health has often been downplayed, and as such, Guyana did not have the requisite qualified professionals in this field. Despite the pandemic, the government wasted no time in spearheading projects in the healthcare sector that would benefit every Guyanese. The Diamond Diagnostic Center is being upgraded to house a new accident and emergency department, a new outpatient area, facilitate enhancement in the surgical maternity areas, along with a much larger pharmacy to accommodate more people and faster processing of medications. Government has also sourced funding from the Department for International Development to rehabilitate Lenora, Lethem, Mabaruma, and Paramakatoy hospitals. Michael Richard Pompeo, the United States Secretary of State, one of the highest-ranking U.S. officials to travel to Guyana to meet with the head of state, touched down at the Cheddi Jagan International Airport on September 17th. Mr. Pompeo was on a South American tour aimed at highlighting the U.S.'s commitment to safeguarding democracy, combating the COVID-19 pandemic, revitalizing economies, and strengthening security against regional threats. His tour from September 17th to the 20th included visits to Suriname, Brazil and Colombia as well. During the visit, diplomatic relations between the two countries strengthened with the signing of 2 bilateral cooperation agreements. President Ali said he was pleased with the signing of the framework to strengthen energy and infrastructure finance and market-building cooperation in the context of the Growth in Americas initiative. The agreement would also pave the way for the U.S. private sector to expand its investment portfolio and partner with its Guyanese counterpart. The two countries were also able to deepen cooperation in the area of security and maritime patrols aimed at interdicting drug trafficking,
with specific attention to maritime security and joint patrols to interdict narcotics trafficking. This will also allow us to improve our technical and human capabilities in monitoring Guyana's exclusive economic zone. This augurs well for stronger collaboration and broader technical assistance to help combat both domestic and transnational organized criminal networks. We also look forward to continued and enhanced assistance in the fields of border control, anti-terrorism, cybersecurity, technology transfer, and anti-corruption measures.
Secretary of State Pompeo called for a closer relationship between the United States and the Caribbean. Mr. Pompeo said he was happy with earlier conversations on strengthening relations for the benefit of all Guyanese and Americans. He also committed on behalf of the U.S. government financial support for a locally led program for citizen involvement in democracy.
We're ready. The United States is ready to be your partner of choice as you face big decisions moving forward, especially on energy and future prosperity in your country. That's how Americans will help produce local jobs and sustainable growth for the people of your country. You should know that the United States AID that works as part of the State Department is on the same page too. I'm proud to announce this morning that the agency has committed $3 million for a locally led program for citizens' involvement in their government, and $1.5 million so that the youth of Guyana will be involved in democracy as well.
Guyana's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Hugh Todd, said Mr. Pompeo's trip to Guyana is an endorsement that Guyana is on the right track.
When you look at our governance structure and our inclusive policies, and the way we have articulated what we will do for the next 5 years in our manifesto, speak to what Guyana is as a nation and what we're going to do for our people. And it's aligned with the values and the principles that the people of America have enjoyed for centuries, and they see us as a partner that they can work with in the region.
Government has adopted an aggressive approach in meeting the needs of the citizens during its first 100 days in office. Join us for the 4th installment as we take a look at the accomplishments of the administration as it approached 80 days in office. I'm Natasha Smith saying goodbye for now.